Close your eyes now. And let the night fall away. Slowly, like the last embers in a hearth fire. You are drifting gently into a time long gone. A world made not of noise and brightness, but of soft fabric, slow footsteps, and warm wood smoke. Far from the city, in a humble thatched cottage, a young peasant girl sleeps curled on her straw mattress, blanketed in a quilt that smells faintly of thyme and elderflower. The room is still. The only sound is the rhythmic sigh of her breathing, and the faint creak of old beams settling above her. Outside, the sky is dark velvet, dotted with stars that blink in and out, behind slow-moving clouds. This is the day she has waited for. It is the morning of her first feast day. A day when the village will gather in the meadow. To mark the turn of the season, there will be bread and honey, bells and blessings, dancing perhaps, if her mother allows it. But for now, the world is still. The girl stirs just before dawn. Not because of noise, but from a kind of quiet joy that has no words. She sits up slowly, shoulders wrapped in a wool shawl, hair loose and tangled from the night. She does not light a candle. There is no need. She knows the way through the dark. Bare feet touch packed earth floor. She moves by feel, fingers brushing against the worn edge of the table, the smooth wooden handle of the water bucket. The cottage is a single room, walls made of wattle and daub, roof low and heavy with age. In the corner, the ashes of last night's fire rest beneath a cracked hearthstone. She kneels, gently placing a bundle of dried grass, twigs and curled bark into the hearth. Then, with flint and patience, she coaxes the first spark. The fire comes alive slowly, its glow painting her cheeks with soft gold. She does not rush. No one in the village rushes. Outside, the roosters are beginning to stir. The air is still cool, and smells faintly of damp leaves and distant wood smoke. She stands and stretches, then lifts a small iron pot, and fills it with water from the clay jug. The pot is set over the fire, where it will warm slowly, making steam curl into the ceiling's shadowed beams. With quiet hands, she unwraps a cloth bundle, a sliver of hard cheese, a bit of yesterday's bread, and one sweet plum kept aside just for today. This is not her breakfast. It is the beginning of a kind of ritual. Today is not just another morning. Today the entire village will come together. And she will be part of it, for the very first time. Not as a child to be carried on her mother's hip, nor as a girl watching from the edge. Today she will braid her hair, wash her face in the stream, and wear the ribbon her grandmother once wore. And she will help. She will carry baskets. She will sweep the path with broom straw. She will smile when the baker's son passes with trays of sugared nuts. The girl takes her shawl from the peg and steps outside. The world beyond the door is still soaked in sleep, but hints of morning are beginning to stretch their limbs. Mist clings to the hedges, and dew shimmers across the grass, like tiny stars scattered beneath her feet. She walks quietly to the stream behind the cottage, each step a soft rhythm on the earth, a lullaby made of moss and soil. By the water's edge she kneels. She dips her hands into the stream, and the cold makes her gasp just a little. But she does not pull away. She lets the chill wake her slowly, the way the sun wakes the sky. She lifts the water to her face, presses it against her cheeks, and lets it drip from her chin like silver threads. Birdsong begins, faint and high in the trees. Robin, thrush, and then the distant bells of the chapel tower, ringing low and slow. She smiles. The day has truly begun. And in the quiet folds of her heart, there is a gentle joy that glows like warm honey in a wooden cup. She gathers her skirt, rises from the stream bank, and begins the slow walk back home. The fire will be ready now, so will the bread dough, and her mother's voice will hum softly as she kneads and shapes the loaves. The girl walks slowly. She is not in a hurry. There is time, plenty of time, and all of it begins here, in these early hours. before the sun fully arrives. In a small cottage, with warm earth, cool water and soft breath, where a girl prepares not just her body, but her soul, for the gentle joy of being part of something bigger than herself. The sky is turning from pewter to pearl. Faint light spills across the edges of the village fields, brushing the thatched roofs and sleepy garden rows. With soft silvery tones, the girl steps lightly over the threshold, returning to the warmth of the hearth. Just as the fire reaches its steady glow, no flames crackle or leap. This is not a fire of noise, but of comfort and glow, like the kind that lives in the chest, when you've been warmed from within. She removes her damp shawl and hangs it to dry, the wool heavy with mist, and pulls her long braid over one shoulder. It is tangled from sleep, its strands rough with the scent of ash and lavender, and she begins to smooth it out with gentle fingers, a rhythm known only to those who have never owned a comb. On the wall, a narrow shelf holds the few things her family treasures: a clay whistle in the shape of a bird, a strip of embroidered linen from her grandmother, and a carefully folded bundle of cloth. Today, that bundle is for her. She lifts it with care, as though it might sigh or sing, and unfolds the cloth across the table. It is a dress, not new, but worn only once, and lovingly patched where the hem had frayed. The color is soft blue, like cornflowers seen through steam. Its sleeves are wide, the neckline square, with stitching so tiny it seems drawn by breath. This is the dress she will wear to the feast. Not the everyday shift she wears to dig potatoes or carry wood, but a celebration dress. A dress that says, "You are ready to be seen. You are part of the world today." She runs her hands over the fabric, pressing out the creases with her palms, feeling the strength in the threads. They were sewn by her mother, and by her mother's mother, and maybe even before. This dress holds stories. It carries whispers of old feast days, of laughter beside bonfires, of songs hummed in kitchens and chapels alike. She slips it over her shift and ties the cords at her waist. The linen brushes softly against her skin, fitting not quite perfectly, but perfectly enough. Then, from a small wooden chest, she lifts something precious. Ribbon. It is the color of rose hips in winter, deep and dusky red, with a woven edge of pale gold. Her mother wore it the day she carried bread to the chapel for the spring blessing. Now it is hers. She runs the ribbon between her fingers, then slowly lifts it to her hair, gathering her braid and tying it gently. The bow sits at the nape of her neck, soft as a secret. At that moment, a door creaks open behind her. Her mother is awake. No words are spoken, only a quiet look exchanged between one woman and the girl who is becoming one. Her mother smiles, a small smile, but the kind that carries everything: lifetime, blessing, a letting go. They work together in the hush that follows, mixing flour and warm water in the kneading bowl, dust rising like flower-scented smoke, yeast blooming with the heat of the fire. Their hands press the dough in rhythm, slow and steady, folding and turning, folding and turning. In the corner of the room, a broom waits, its bristles made from dried heather, its handle wrapped in cord. The girl takes it now, and steps outside again. The sun is rising at last, but not with brightness. It rises like a yawn, a stretch of golden gray across the sky. She begins to sweep the front path, slowly brushing leaves and tiny pebbles aside. Each stroke of the broom feels like a prayer, a way of saying to the world, "We are ready for joy. We are making space for wonder." Tiny birds hop along the hedge, pecking quietly for crumbs or seeds. In the distance, a neighbor's cow lowing softly can be heard, and the creak of a well bucket pulley. The village is waking, but here just outside a quiet cottage, a girl sweeps a path with careful hands, a ribbon tied at her neck, a celebration dress brushing her ankles. and a heart full of calm anticipation. He does not speak. There is no need. Everything that matters is already in motion. The bread is rising. The fields are golden with promise. The day is unfolding one soft petal at a time. And the girl is ready. The sweep of her broom slows. She pauses by the fence, where the wood is worn smooth from years of leaning arms and sun-warmed palms. A faint breeze lifts her braid, carrying with it the scent of damp earth, smoke, and barley. The sounds of the village are waking with her. A shutter creaks open across the path. A hen clucks somewhere behind the smithy. A sleepy dog gives one single, muffled bark before curling back beneath the cart. Nothing is rushed. Not here. Even time itself seems to stretch and yawn, unfolding in soft layers like wool blankets pulled back at dawn. Inside the cottage, the warmth of the oven grows stronger, carrying the scent of rising bread, yeasty and thick, with just a hint of honey and crushed fennel seed. She breathes it in deeply, then tucks the broom away beside the doorway. Her mother is humming now, low and wordless, like the memory of a lullaby. The girl moves toward the table, where a cloth has been laid, and on it rests a bundle of feast day tasks. A spindle wrapped in unspun flax, a small box of dried rosemary, a cracked bowl holding river stones and 2 pale goose eggs. She takes the rosemary first. Today, it will be steeped in boiling water and used to wash the door frames, an old custom to bring sweetness and luck for the season ahead. Each herb has a purpose, her grandmother used to say. Rosemary for memory, thyme for courage, lavender to keep the bad spirits out. She crushes a sprig between her fingers. Its sharp, green scent is like a whisper through her chest. Bright. Wait. She sets a pot of water on the hearth, and drops the rosemary inside. The heat lifts its fragrance into the air, blending with the smell of bread and wood smoke, until the cottage becomes a kind of prayer itself. Outside, a bell begins to ring, soft and far away. The chapel bell, calling not for worship but for gathering, one slow tone at a time, one heartbeat, then the next. The girl's mother lifts the loaf from the oven, and sets it on the windowsill to cool. Its crust is golden and thick, cracked with steam. A single braid runs across the top, an old design for feast days only. The girl stares at it for a moment, not with hunger, but with reverence. Bread is sacred here, every loaf a small miracle, not just food but symbol of work, time, care. In the fields it begins, the first laughter, the thud of a barrel being set down, the low rhythm of carts being pulled over soft dirt paths. The villagers are beginning to gather. Soon, the path in front of her cottage will be dotted with figures. Neighbors in homespun dresses. Grandmothers carrying baskets wrapped in linen. Small children in woolen caps chasing one another with clumsy joy. The girl's heart beats a little faster. But it is not nervousness. It is anticipation, like the moment before music begins, or before the sun slips fully over the hills. She picks up a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside are 5 simple items. Her offering for the feast table. A wedge of last autumn's cheese, wrapped carefully in beeswax cloth. 3 apples, still slightly green, but plucked fresh from the orchard hedge. A tiny bottle of rosehip syrup, and a scrap of embroidered linen. Her mother says was stitched with love charms long ago. Nothing grand, but enough. Enough to bring. Enough to belong. She folds the bundle back into its cloth, ties it with twine, and sets it gently inside a basket. Outside, more voices rise. A neighbor boy laughing. Dog barking twice. The wheelwright's wife calling to someone unseen. The girl glances at her ribbon in the looking glass. It has stayed neatly in place. She smiles, not at her reflection, but at what the ribbon means. A mark of becoming. Quiet crown. In a few minutes, she will walk the path to the green, her basket held close, her feet bare upon the dust. She will not speak much. She doesn't need to. The feast day speaks on its own. in roasted chestnuts, in warm cider, in the way songs travel through air like lanterns. But for now, for just a few more moments, she stays still in the doorway. The breeze is gentle, the fire behind her sighs, and the morning, wrapped in rosemary and bread, settles soft as down around her shoulders. She breathes it all in, and lets it go. The basket rests against her hip. It swings slightly with her steps, its weight light but full of meaning. Each footfall presses gently into the dirt path, bare soles against warm earth, as if she is touching the world's skin. Her dress moves softly in the breeze. The blue of it glows faintly in the morning light, its hem brushing dew-kissed grasses, its sleeves fluttering like moth wings. She walks past the old wooden fence, where moss grows in the grooves, and past the stone marker carved with the year of a distant king's death. Every step is part of a quiet procession, not alone but not yet surrounded. Other villagers begin to join her on the path. A boy carries a jar of thick clover honey, its golden weight wobbling with each step. An older woman balances a round, steaming pie, carefully wrapped in cloth stitched with tiny red flowers. A man in a patched cloak carries a lute on his back, strings tucked gently beneath a scarf. No one speaks loudly. They greet each other with nods and smiles, with murmurs low and warm as bread crust. This is a holy kind of morning. Not for saints or sermons, but for people, for shared stories, for work turned into joy. The girl walks slower now, not from tiredness, but because the air feels thick with something gentle, like the hush before a song, like the space before a dream. Ahead, the green comes into view. It is not a grand field, but it is beloved, worn flat by years of feet and rain and games and grazing. Today it has been swept clean. The grass is dotted with simple cloths, set down in waiting. Children chase one another between the tree trunks, their voices quick and light as swallows. A low table is being set with clay pitchers of cider, each one resting on a small ring of braided straw. The girl finds a place near the edge, where sunlight filters through the branches. She kneels and places her basket down, unwrapping the cloth slowly, laying each item in its place. The apples polished bright, the cheese firm and pale, the rosehip syrup red as candlelight, the linen charm folded like a blessing. Around her more offerings arrive. A jar of pickled beets, deep purple and gleaming, a round loaf scored with a cross, a string of dried herbs tied with red thread. These are not riches, but they are treasures. They are the gold of a village, the art of quiet hands, the memory of gardens and kitchens and kindnesses. An elder approaches, his beard long, his robe patched but clean. He carries a bowl of water, its surface sprinkled with crushed marigold and salt. He nods at the gathered offerings, and begins to hum, a low tune, old as the hills. The girl bows her head. Everyone around her grows still. Children pause, holding hands. Mothers hush their infants. Even the birds seem to quiet. This is the moment of thanks. Not to any one god, but to the land, to the hands that planted, the skies that watered, the sun that warmed. The elder dips his fingers in the bowl, and flicks droplets into the air. 1, 2, 3. They fall like mist, like a soft rain of gratitude. Then the hum fades, the moment lifts, and the laughter returns. Someone begins to play the lute, a lilting melody like wind through wheat. Two girls begin to dance barefoot in a slow circle, spinning like leaves in a breeze. The girl watches, then feels a hand touch her elbow. It is her mother. No words, just an invitation. Rises, and they walk together to the long table, where the loaves are being sliced, the cider poured. Her ribbon flutters at her back. Her fingers brush the edge of a wooden plate. Her heart is quiet but wide open. She is not just witnessing the day. She is part of it. And as she sips her first mouthful of warm, sweet cider, she feels it settle deep within her chest. the sense that she belongs to this place, to these people, to this moment. The music flows like water down a hillside, gentle, tumbling, impossible to hold. Strings hum beneath calloused fingers. A steady beat rises from a flat tambourine, tapped lightly with fingertips, then passed to a child with wide eyes and a crooked grin. The girl stands beneath an old hawthorn tree, watching a pair of village children tie fresh-plucked daisies into one another's hair. Someone has strung ribbons between the low branches, faded pink and cornflower blue. They twist in the soft wind, dancing above the feast like sleepy birds. A soft voice speaks beside her. "Would you like one?" The girl turns. It is the baker's wife, broad-shouldered, warm-eyed, with hands floured white, and a smile like rising dough. She holds out a ribbon, yellow edged in green, crinkled with age but clean. The girl nods, quietly, and lets the woman tie it gently around her wrist. Not too tight, just enough to remind her, through every moment of the day, that she is part of something stitched together with care. The baker's wife leans close, whispers something about honey loaves and mischief, then disappears into the fluttering of skirts and laughter. The girl walks on. Her eyes trace every detail. The gleam of cider poured from jug to cup. The shimmer of sunlight across the edge of the chapel roof. The small, sleeping dog nestled between two baskets of eggs. She notices the bread maker now, setting out a tray of warm rounds, each one marked with symbols carved deep into the crust. One with the sun, one with a sheaf of wheat, one with a heart pierced by an arrow. She watches as villagers lean in, smiling, choosing one with care. It is tradition to pick the loaf that speaks to you. She steps forward. The warmth from the tray rises into her face. And the smell. It is sweet and golden, with something deep beneath like cloves or toasted milk. The bread maker smiles without saying a word, just nods toward the tray. The girl hesitates, then reaches, slowly, thoughtfully, and picks a loaf marked with a small spiral. The bread maker's eyes brighten, as if she knows something the girl does not yet understand. The girl holds the loaf close. It is soft but weighty, and she tears off a piece and presses it to her tongue. The crust flakes like whispering paper. The inside is warm and pillowy, like something that had been asleep until this very moment. She chews. She closes her eyes, just for a second, and in that soft second, the music fades, the laughter softens, and the world turns inward. The taste becomes a memory, of a hearth, of flour sifted with care, of the hands that made this for her without knowing her name. She opens her eyes again, and everything is still here. The ribbons, the smiling faces, the tree that hums with bees, the child's tambourine now thumping a crooked beat in the distance, and her loaf still warm in her hands, a spiral drawn in its crust, as if to say, this day too has layers. 'Twill open slowly, and leave you full. She takes one more bite, then tucks the rest into the cloth of her basket. Around her, the meadow glows with a quiet brightness. Not dazzling, not loud, just steady, like embers. It is not yet noon. There are stories still to hear, small tasks still to help with, smiles still to offer and to gather in return. She lingers a while longer beneath the hawthorn tree, ribbon brushing her wrist, the wind soft as breath on the back of her neck. This is the middle of the day, and in its stillness, she feels wrapped in something very old and very kind. There is a long bench beneath the edge of the elm trees, just where the shade begins. It is worn smooth by years of gathering. Old hands, young hands, the hands of visitors, all have rested here, shelling peas or pulling threads from drying herbs. Today the girl sits there, her basket beside her, and a shallow wooden bowl in her lap. Inside, a tumble of bright green pea pods, harvested early this morning, still dewy. Beside her sits an older woman, Her apron faded and fragrant with rosemary. Together, without words, they begin to shell. The pot opens. A soft click as the peas fall into the bowl. Again and again. It is not work. It is rhythm. It is the heartbeat of the feast. More villagers gather along the bench, each one bringing a small task. Someone peels turnips into a carved bowl. Another fans the fire pit near the roasting meat. But it is not the work that matters. It is the talk that moves around them. Low, soothing voices, half-laughed memories, and tales told slowly, as though they are being unfolded from folds of linen. The girl listens. An old man with knotted hands tells of the time. A pig escaped into the chapel, and wouldn't leave until someone played a flute. A woman who once served at the manor describes how the lady of the house kept sparrow eggs in silver bowls to feed to her hawks, and another tells of a dream he had years ago, where the stars fell one by one, and each one whispered a name before it vanished. The girl smiles, fingers still working the peas. He does not speak. She doesn't need to. She is the listener today. A bowl of quiet between stories. Above, the trees murmur in the wind, their leaves clapping softly like polite applause. Few children pass, giggling, chasing one another with cattail stems. One of them pauses beside the girl, offers her a flower crown, awkwardly made, a little crooked, but bright and sweet all the same. She bows her head. He places it gently. Now her ribbon and her crown rest together, one a mark of age, the other of childhood still near. In her lap the peas pile higher, round and green like tiny glass beads, smooth as marbles in a dream. She runs her hand through them, feeling the coolness against her skin. The older woman beside her chuckles softly. Feels good, doesn't it? The woman murmurs. Like river stones. Or blessings. The girl nods. She does not say it out loud. But the thought forms clearly in her heart. I want to remember this exact moment forever. The sunlight, dappled through leaves. The warmth of people nearby. The pop of a pot opening clean. The smell of cut herbs in someone's apron. Simple things. But deep things. Things that settle in the chest like smooth river stones. Held in place by time. The bowl is full now. The peas glisten in the shade. A boy takes them gently to the cook's table. And she stands, brushing her dress softly. Flower crown a little lopsided. Someone is singing now. A slow tune, old and lilting. In a voice that creaks like wood but warms like a candle. The girl walks toward the sound. Her steps are light. Her eyes calm. Her whole body moved by something wordless and wide. The stories still hum behind her. The trees continue their soft applause. And the scent of roasting meat has begun to weave through the air. Like a ribbon of memory waiting to be tied. The voice leads her past the tables and laughter. Past the resting dogs and overturned baskets. Past the little patch of earth where someone has spilled wild berries. There beneath a tree stump, a woman sings alone. She is old, with braids the color of river mud, and a face wrinkled like a linen map, the kind folded too many times, and carried close to the heart. She hums more than she sings, half notes and half words, like a lullaby sung underwater. But her eyes are wide open, watching the sky through the branches, as if expecting someone to answer. The girl sits nearby, not too close, just enough to hear. The song is a story, and the story is a song. It tells of a girl who danced so gently that the wheat grew taller where her feet had passed. It tells of a blacksmith who struck a bell so perfectly that the sound never faded, only wandered further and further into the woods. It tells of a kitchen full of mice who once learned to make cheese after watching a widow stir her pot. Each verse softens at the end, like breath falling into silence. The girl rests her chin on her knees. She does not understand all of it, but it doesn't matter. The meaning isn't in the logic. It's in the rhythm, the feeling, The way her heartbeat begins to match the woman's humming. Low, then slower. Someone brings a bowl to the woman. Warm spiced milk, sprinkled with nutmeg and a few flower petals. She nods without pausing her tune, then sips between stanzas. The girl is offered some too. She accepts, the wooden bowl warm between her palms. The milk is thick and sweet, like a memory from babyhood. Tastes of warmth, of quiet, of kindness shared. Around them the feast continues. But here beside the tree stump, time curls inward like steam from the cup. A breeze rises. It shifts the air, lifting the woman's braids, carrying her humming out across the grass. The girl closes her eyes. She can feel the warmth of the sun on her cheek, the softness of grass beneath her legs, and the slow weight of her own body, as if the earth is gently holding her in place. She lets the song fill her, not with thoughts, but with softness, with stillness, with something that feels like being deeply seen. When the song ends, no one claps, no one speaks. The woman simply stops, leans back, and sips the last of her milk. And the silence that follows is as full as the music itself. The girl stands slowly, setting her bowl aside, and offers the woman a small smile. The woman nods in return. Not a thank you, not a goodbye, just a knowing. A brief pause in the endless weaving of day. The girl turns, walking once again into the sunlight. Her flower crown is beginning to wilt. Her ribbon flutters behind her, and her heart feels full, not in a loud way, but in a way that settles deep, like seeds beneath the soil, waiting. Ahead, the scent of roasted nuts and wild mushroom stew begins to rise on the breeze, carries her forward, softly, into the next chapter of the feast. The girl walks slowly past the cider jugs and breadcrumbs, past the folded cloths and idle baskets. The air is heavier now, not with heat, but with the fullness that comes after a long and lovely day. Somewhere someone is stirring a great pot. She follows the scent. It smells of sage and garlic, of mushrooms gathered at dawn, and of onions slow cooked to sweetness. There is steam, rising in spirals, soft as silk scarves in the wind. She finds the cook, a broad man with sleeves rolled up, apron smeared with ash and thyme leaves. He hums under his breath as he stirs. The ladle moves like a pendulum, slow and sure. The girl joins the short line forming near the cook's table. Everyone carries a simple wooden bowl, and no one rushes. When her turn comes, he gives her a wink and a full ladle's worth, thick with vegetables and wild herbs. A chunk of barley bread is handed over too, still warm from the ash oven beside the fire pit. She takes a seat beneath an old yew tree, where a blanket has been laid out, and 3 small children are eating without words, slurping and chewing with sleepy, contented eyes. She dips her bread into the broth. It softens quickly, soaked with flavor, with patience, with care. The stew is not fancy, but it is perfect. Every bite feels earned. Every spoonful is a quiet reward. For waking early, for helping hands, for listening and walking and breathing in the day. She eats slowly. Around her, the voices have dimmed. People speak in murmurs now. No more stories shouted across the green. No more songs for now. Only chewing, sipping, the occasional hum of appreciation. Across the meadow, smoke rises from 1 or 2 cooking fires, curling like ribbon around the tree limbs. Children have grown quieter. A few rest with their heads in their mother's laps. One baby is curled like a kitten beside a basket of greens, thumb tucked neatly in her mouth. The girl tears the last piece of her bread and lays it gently on the grass for the birds. She watches as a brave little finch hops near, head tilted, then pecks at the crumb with a tiny jab of its beak. There is something holy in this, she thinks, not the chapel kind of holy, but the deep, wide, living kind, where everything matters and nothing is hurried. The breeze has cooled now, And someone hands her a soft shawl. Not hers, but warm and welcome. She thanks them with her eyes. Nearby, a group is setting up for the evening's final rites. Not formal ones, but those of tradition. Lanterns strung from poles. A circle of chairs drawn close. A single fiddle tuned with slow, patient strokes. The girl stays where she is for a little longer. Her stomach is full. Her body is calm. And the sun is beginning to slide down the sky. Like a golden coin slipping into velvet. This is the warming hour. Where the day's light fades gently. But the heart glows brighter. The feast continues. But now it's quieter, deeper. Meant not for noise, but for remembering. She presses her fingers into the folds of her dress, feeling the weave, the softness from hours of wear, the places where warmth still lingers from the sun. Tonight will come slowly. There will be candles, laughter, perhaps one more song. But for now, she lets herself be still. And in the stillness, she feels it again, that quiet joy, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that glows. The girl stands again, shawl drawn gently around her shoulders, and watches the colors change. Sky to violet, meadow to gold, shadows stretched long like ribbon across the feast ground. There is movement again, not loud, not quick, but like a slow tide coming in. Someone strikes a flint, and the first lantern is lit. It glows amber in the growing dark, a floating jewel suspended on twine. Then another, and another. The trees seem to hum with the light, as though remembering how to be stars. She walks toward the flickering circle, where children are helping the elders tie the lanterns between poles. Their laughter is softer now, less wild, more dreamy. They move like dancers in a half-forgotten play. The girl is handed one of the paper lanterns. It is painted with pale brushstrokes. Bird, moon, a swirl of wheat. She ties it gently in place, her fingers brushing the string. The flame inside wobbles a little, then settles. Feels like lighting a hope, or a prayer, or something too quiet for words. Nearby, someone burns dried lavender in a shallow clay bowl. The smoke rises in blue-silver spirals, curling around ankles and drifting into hair. Smells of sleep, of old comfort, of the sachets her mother tucks into their bed linens. Each winter, she stands still for a long time. The lanterns glow brighter as the sky deepens. Around her, the feast winds down. Plates are cleared. Laughter becomes murmurs. The fire is stoked for the final warmth. A girl beside her, no more than 8, presses a small gift into her hand. It is a folded leaf, stitched with a single thread of red wool. Charm, perhaps, or just a game. But the girl holds it like a treasure. She tucks it into her ribbon, close to her neck. And in that moment, she realizes something. She feels whole. Not in a grand, triumphant way, but in the gentle way that only comes from being fully present. For all the quiet parts of a day, the smells, the footsteps, the stories told by women with tired hands, the little songs, the bites of stew, the soft nudge of a shoulder beside hers. When someone laughed too hard, she didn't notice it happening. But somewhere between sunrise and lantern light, she became different. Not older, just a more herself. She watches the flame inside her lantern flicker, and thinks, this is what becoming feels like. It doesn't roar, glows. She closes her eyes, takes a breath. The lavender smoke curls around her, and she lets it carry her gently into the hush of evening. The fire at the green center crackles softly now, its flames low and drowsy, its smoke trailing skyward like a long sigh. The girl steps near its warmth, the shawl still wrapped close around her shoulders, its wool threaded with the faint scent of elderflower. A ring of villagers has gathered, not tightly, but in the loose way that feels like family. Some are seated on low wooden stools, others on folded blankets, or simply on the grass. There are no speeches, no announcements, only the sound of someone tuning a fiddle, A soft tightening of strings. Pluck. Die. Then music. Gentle low lilting. Like a lullaby remembered from years ago. Half sung beneath a doorway. Half finished beneath a quilt. The girl watches as two people stand. Not young, not old. They step into the soft circle of firelight. Hands joined. And they begin to move. It is not a grand dance. Not the kind taught by court tutors or watched in great halls. It is something older. A slow turning. Swaying. Two people moving together. The way leaves might shift in wind. Not to impress. But simply to belong. Others begin to join. A mother and her son. Two cousins who giggle as they misstep. An old widow who dances alone. Smiling at no one and everyone. And then the girl is pulled gently forward. By a neighbor. A kind-faced boy with hands like carved spoons. No words. She takes his hand. And suddenly she is part of it. The firelight glows across her skin. Her ribbon flutters as she turns. Her bare feet press lightly against the earth. And she feels its quiet, grounding pull. Up, turn, step again. The dance is simple. But it feels sacred. Each motion like a stitch in a story being sewn by moonlight. Around her the circle glows. Not just with fire. But with something else. Kind of hush. A shared breathing. As if every heart is moving in the same slow rhythm. She feels herself smiling. Not the kind of smile she wears when spoken to. But the kind that rises from the center of the chest. Unsummoned. True. The dance lasts only a few minutes. Or perhaps it lasts forever. Time folds in these hours. It stretches and softens. Like dough beneath warm hands. When the tune ends. The boy bows slightly. And she returns the gesture. Hands parting like petals. The dancers step back to the edge. Someone brings mugs of warm honeyed milk. Someone else begins a new tune. This one slower still. Like the turning of stars. The girl sits again. A low stool. Close enough to feel the fire's warmth on her shins. She wraps her shawl tighter. The flower crown has slipped sideways in her hair. But she leaves it there. Feels right. She sips her drink. The milk is thick with spice. Nutmeg, maybe a pinch of ground bay. It settles heavy and soft in her belly. Like a lullaby inside her. Above, the sky is velvet dark now. The stars arrive without sound. Each one winking into view. Like a secret kept just for those still awake. And she is still awake. But not restless. Not wanting. Only resting. Only being. In a ring of lanterns. By the warmth of fire. With the scent of lavender and wool. And the slow beat of her own softening heart. The girl tilts her face to the sky. The stars blink gently. Patient and still. Some seem near. Like they could fall softly into her outstretched hands. Others glow faint and far. Like the memory of a song barely remembered. The fire crackles low. Now more embers than flame. Its warmth is quieter. Less about heat. And more about presence. A red-orange glow. Breathing gently with the earth. She sits cross-legged on her shawl. Hands tucked beneath her knees. Her eyes are half closed. Her thoughts not fully formed. But drifting like feathers across still water. Beside her, an elder woman begins to speak. Not loudly. Just enough for those gathered close to hear. Story. True one perhaps. Or maybe just one passed down. Worn smooth like a pebble from generations of telling. She speaks of an old belief. That on feast days. The last of the fire's ash held a kind of quiet blessing. That if it touched your skin. It would carry into your dreams. And wake you gently with wisdom. The children listen wide-eyed. The adults smile faintly. Some with nostalgia. Some with longing. The woman dips her fingers into a small bowl. Filled with fine gray ash. She steps gently around the circle. Pausing before each person. With a single finger. She touches a bit of ash to their forehead. Or the back of their hand. Or sometimes just the fabric near their heart. When she reaches the girl. There is no rush. Their eyes meet. And though no words are spoken, the girl feels something pass between them, something still and deep, like water beneath a quiet boat. The ash touches her wrist. Oh, It leaves a faint gray smudge, barely visible in the low light. But the feeling lingers, a kind of weightless warmth, like being remembered, like being named. The elder continues on, one blessing at a time. And the circle hums with stillness. No music now, no dance, just breathing. The slow shift of bodies wrapped in wool, the crackle of logs settling into coals. Some have already begun to nod off, heads resting on shoulders, hands curled like petals. The girl remains awake, but only just. Her thoughts are soft and rounded now. She thinks of the spiral on her bread, of the humming songs, of the hands that passed her the flower crown, now tucked safely in her lap. Above the stars shine steady. One streaks across the sky. She watches it fall, its trail disappearing into dark. She does not make a wish. She only smiles, because, in truth, there is nothing more she could ask for. Not now. Not on this night. Not with her skin warm from firelight, and ash still resting gently on her wrist. The night has settled. The fire is nearly quiet, and dreams are already beginning to bloom, soft as the stars above the village green. Sink deeper now. Let this last chapter drift over you, like the last warmth of the hearth. The girl does not know when her eyes began to close, only that her breath is slower now, and the sounds around her have turned to hush. The fire glows low, just a heart of ember, flickering against the curve of her cheek. The last log has fallen inward, its crackles soft as whispers behind a door. Around her others sleep, a child curled beside a breadbasket, an old man using his coat for a pillow, mouth open, dreaming perhaps of his own first feast. The lanterns are dimming now. Their flames shrink to tiny golden seeds, tucked into the dark. Above, the moon has risen, full and round, wearing a silver shawl of clouds. It watches in silence, as it has for hundreds of feast days before. The girl lies back. Her shawl is folded beneath her head. One hand rests lightly over her belly, where the warmth of stew still lingers. The other drapes across her lap, fingers brushing the wilted flower crown that fell there without her noticing. Her breath is the rhythm now, soft as moth wings, steady as the turn of time. In her mind, she begins to walk again, but only inside herself. She steps once more through the early morning mist, past the washing lines, past the chapel wall, to the field where the grass smelled of dew. She feels the ribbon on her wrist, the spiral on her bread, the touch of ash on her skin. All of it folds inward now. The day gathers itself like cloth being tucked away, gently, lovingly, stitched with memories. She does not feel herself fall asleep. She only knows that she is being carried, somewhere soft, somewhere where laughter echoes far away, like bells in fog, where ribbons dance along fences, and music never truly ends, just grows quieter, like the hum inside your own chest. She dreams of hands dipping into bowls of peas, of the smell of lavender rising with smoke, of a single lantern swinging gently in wind, marking the place where she became something new. The night is long, but not lonely, and in the quiet cradle of it, to rest, not just asleep, but folded into the story, a girl, feast, and the slow blooming of belonging. The fire has fallen to its final glow. A handful of coals blink gently in the dark, like eyes half shut, ready to dream. The girl stands again, moving softly as if not to wake the night. Around her, the meadow is hushed. Blankets are bundled. Bowls are stacked. One by one, the lanterns have been lowered. She wraps her shawl tighter. The grass is cool beneath her bare feet, damp with the breath of midnight. Few quiet goodbyes are exchanged, but most simply nod. Soft smiles, touch of fingers to arms. No need for words. The walk home begins with slow steps. She takes the narrow path along the edge of the green, past the elderberry hedge, past the leaning gate where the cider jugs once sat. A night bird sings far off. Not a full song, just a single note, called once then lost. She passes the chapel, its stones silver under moonlight. The bell tower glows faintly, even it seems to be resting. Her basket is nearly empty now. Just a corner of bread, the folded shawl of another, and the stitched leaf charm tucked gently beside it. She thinks of the bread spiral, the soft song by the tree, the warmth of stew in her belly. Each memory is no longer bright, but golden, like candlelight remembered behind closed eyes. She reaches the lane. The cottages are quiet. A shutter creaks gently in the breeze. As she passes one window, candle still flickers there. Someone else is awake, or dreaming with their eyes open. The moon is behind her now, casting her shadow forward. She watches it ripple along the path, long thin, like a ribbon pulled gently by the breeze. She remembers how she felt in the morning, nervous, unsure, the weight of the day stretched long ahead of her. Now her shoulders are loose, her fingers relaxed, her mind a quiet pool. She knows, with the simple certainty that only tiredness brings, that this day is hers now. No one can take it. No part of it will vanish. It is folded into her, stitched to the thread of who she is becoming. She reaches her gate. It squeaks softly as she opens it. No dog barks. No light is lit. The house is asleep. She climbs the steps carefully, slips inside without sound. Her shoes are left by the door, her shawl folded over the bench. She pours a little water into a clay cup, drinks slowly, each swallow grounding her, like the first warm blanket over bare legs. The hearth is quiet, but its stone still holds the heat of last night's fire. She sits on the stool beside it, just for a moment, and presses her palms flat to the stone. Warmth hums up through her skin. Not heat, just memory, a stew, and bread, and music. Nash. She rests her head on her arms, and stays there, only for a little while, listening to the hush of the house, the creak of old wood, the silence of full hearts. The room is dark, but not lonely. Soft beams from the moon reach through the small window, laying a pale rectangle across the floor. The air smells of dried herbs, lavender, yarrow, a whisper of mint. She can just make out the familiar shapes. The wooden chest, the three-legged stool, the worn edge of the woolen rug. Everything is quiet, and everything is known. She moves with slow care, not because she is afraid, but because she is full of stillness, full of memory. Her dress is carefully folded, laid over the back of a chair. The ribbon she wore all day, the one that marked her as almost grown, is coiled neatly beside it, like a secret kept safe. She draws her shift over her shoulders, feeling the cool linen settle on her skin. The fire downstairs is out, but its warmth lingers faintly in the floorboards, rising like a lullaby. She climbs into her cot. The straw mattress crackles softly beneath her, and the wool blanket feels heavier than usual. Or perhaps it's just that she is more tired than she has ever been. Not tired in the way that aches, tired in the way that welcomes rest, tired like rain welcomes the earth. She pulls the blanket to her chin, and beneath it, her knees curl inward, tucked and quiet, like a seed in the soil. Her eyes close easily. She does not need to search for sleep. It is already here, wrapped around her like the shawl she wore at twilight. Before she drifts fully, a few last thoughts float gently through her mind. The feel of peas tumbling into a bowl, the soft scrape of bread against stew, the way her hands danced just briefly beneath the firelight. She remembers the hush of the circle, the ash pressed gently to her wrist, the elders' smile, and finally, the stars, still above her, still watching, a sky full of silver witnesses. She lets her breath deepen. and then another, until it becomes the only sound in the room. Outside, the world sleeps with her. Somewhere, the last lantern flickers out. The wind moves softly through the grass, and the moon keeps watch, as it always has, over feast days and first dreams. She sleeps, and in her dreams, the feast continues, in laughter, in warmth, in songs without end.